Today's episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron was made possible by Kilohertz. Kilohertz not only makes a massive bundle of free plugins that you should really go get right now, but they also make some of my other favorite plugins like Slice EQ, the Kilohertz Convolver, Multipass, and of course the one and only Phase Plant, which is probably one of the most powerful synthesizers on the market. My new phase plant bank, Ephemeris, is out now, exploring the worlds of cinematic, psychedelic ambient production. If you want to check it out for yourself or check out any of the other amazing offerings from Kilohertz, you could do so with the link down in the description and support the channel in the process. Howdy doody, buckaroonies. Here's something to bounce around the old noodle. What if you let another artist steal your sound? Would it really take away what makes your music special? And would it mean that you would never be able to create another unique song with your own special sauce? Maybe the bigger question is, what is your sound to begin with? What exactly is it that makes you sound like you? A little over a year ago, I was asked that same question by my friends over at Kilohertz, and today I'm really excited to say that my new phase plant sound bank, Ephemeris, is finally available. For a number of reasons, this project took forever to see the light of day, but I'm so glad that it's here. And today, I wanted to just talk about some thoughts that came up throughout this process, and talking about what it means to give your secret sound away to other people, and why it's so interesting. In fact, I would really love it if you would consider this as your homework assignment for the week. There's a saying in the world of guitarists that tone is in the hands, which I think is really just a sort of pretentious way of saying that it's not really about the instrument, it's about the player. If you went out and bought Stevie Ray Vaughan's entire guitar setup and played a Stevie Ray song note for note, it's not really gonna end up sounding like Stevie Ray. It's gonna sound like someone else playing a Stevie Ray song. But I don't think that's really as bad a thing as people make it out to be. Those minute choices in phrasing, timing, inflection, and other idiosyncrasies are what define you as an artist. And although when you're starting out, this idea of a failure to emulate something may be discouraging, I think with a little bit of time and a slight shift in perspective, it actually becomes one of the most empowering ideas you can embrace as a creator. No matter what you do, you're never gonna sound like someone else, because they're always going to be one step ahead of you on their creative path of being them. While you may be able to get really close eventually, you're never gonna get quite there. This hit to the ego does definitely sting a bit at first, but once you embrace this idea that your creative superpower is just keeping on, there's nothing that can hold you back from that. Defining your sound as an artist is one of those things that's simple but kinda complicated. However, I do think it's an important thing to sit down and ask yourself to try to do, because it can help you to not only make informed decisions when creating, but also help you assess some approaches to solving common problems you might run into while creating. The frustrating part about this, though, is that no matter how much you try and escape it, to some degree, some aspects of what you do are ultimately going to be derivative. But I think that's okay, because as the saying goes, good artists borrow and great artists steal. Your artistic signature is always going to be the result of a combination of influences, but that doesn't mean you're just a bad copy of several things. You're taking things you enjoy from each of these sources of inspiration and curating them into this sort of collage soup that can only be put together through your own unique experience and interpretation of art. Your way of interpreting these things is beautifully weird and broken, and it's one of the most critical aspects of what makes you, you. When it comes to creative works like music, art, or other more abstract things that can't really be objectively measured without assigning criteria, the only way you can interpret something is by assigning meaning or value to various aspects of it, like function, or form, or just general aesthetic purpose. Your way of creating is, and always has to be, unique to you. You're the only one that can assign this sense of value or purpose to the aspects of a creative work. And in simple terms, I guess what this means is nobody quite makes a banger like you do. And no matter how hard they try, they never will. All of this is exactly why I love working on things like sound design projects. Although I'm trying to distill at least part of my influences and inclinations into a sound or a loop or whatever, I know that no matter how right or wrong I make that sound, whoever uses it is going to transform it and create something new with it that I would never think of. And really, I think that's where the coolest part of all this lies. Whenever I talk to plugin developers or hardware companies or other people about this same sort of subject, the conversation always ends really the same way. The joy of creating this stuff comes from seeing what people will create with it. For this sound bank, I really wanted to focus on sounds that have many different dimensions and layers of expression. The word ephemeris really means a set of data that defines the position of something over time, and that's exactly the spirit I wanted to capture with this bank, with a bit of my own cinematic-y, electronic-y, ambient-y, psychedelic-ness thrown in. For me, part of what makes a great sound is that it's something that's interactive, like any other instrument, and there are so many ways to interact with sounds inside of a synthesizer, with things like velocity, aftertouch, or the mod wheel. With that in mind, I actually designed this bank to be an MPE or MIDI polyphonic expression bank, where each note can change and evolve based on the position and amount of different interactions. Of course, though, not everyone has an MPE controller, so I did design the bank so that anyone with a standard MIDI controller can use it as well, where things like velocity, the mod wheel, and aftertouch correspond to the respective MPE controls. The thing that I always find inspiring in music is those subtle layers of detail that don't necessarily reveal themselves until you listen back again. And that's exactly what I wanted to do with this sound bank, is create a set of sounds that evolve and grow and change and give you something new to explore whenever you use them. With that in mind, what does it take to distill yourself down to something as humble as a sample pack or a preset pack? Realistically, you'll never really be able to create something that sums up who you are as an artist, because if we could do that, we'd all write one perfect song once and be done with it, instead of being endlessly stuck pursuing that ideal form of our creation in the SoundCloud hustling mixtapes outside of a Wendy's grind. It's an interesting process to have to try and peel back the layers and create a top-down, objective look at yourself as a creator. But I think it's really a matter of finding the things you feel are valuable. Do you like using only a handful of sounds at a time, or are you someone who likes lots of tools that end up creating mosaics and puzzles of sonic layers? Do you prefer massive washing soundscapes or punchy and direct sounds that crush your face into a mountain? Are you someone who likes to just vibe out, or are you someone who prefers a little bit of tinkering? The real beauty in this exercise, I think, is only you can answer those questions, and the results are only something you can create. There's such a pure joy in knowing that you created something that gave someone one of those little light bulb moments. If you've ever collaborated with another creator, you'll know the power of just bouncing ideas back and forth and how deeply inspiring it is to work with another creative. Personally, I think the same sense of collaborative spirit is what makes sound design and sharing your musical ideas so interesting. You might think that this loop is just another day in the office, but to someone else, this is exactly the sound they've been looking for. On the other side of the coin, though, you might have some fun tricks and a bit of secret sauce you'd like to keep hidden away. But I don't think sharing them means giving your secrets away. It means now that someone else can take the idea you had and make it their own in a way you would never think of. I think it's just really neat to know that spending just an afternoon doing like some simple wavetable design or something can be the difference for someone else out there to get that next best song they've ever made done, or creating a couple drum loops over the course of a few days might unlock the next album someone makes. That's really, really powerful, and I think that is what this musical community is all about in the end. As with any sound design project, I had so much fun taking some time to try and put a little bit of myself into one of my favorite synthesizers. And I think the most exciting part is I have absolutely no idea what that's going to inspire someone to make. If you had to tell your story in only a handful of presets or samples, how would you do it? What would you share? What do you think it would make other people create? I think that's a question that's worth finding out an answer to, and I'd love it if you'd go out and share a little bit of yourself with the world this week. Music is the story of people, and people helping each other make that happen is what makes art possible. A huge thank you to Kilohearts for asking me to make this sound bank. This project was a ton of fun, and it's available right now with the link down there. With that, the end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.